Okay, today our lesson is on rewriting equations and formulas. Essentially, we're going to be using the same algebraic steps we've been using to solve equations. It's just that we're not always going to come up with a number for an answer. We're going to come up with a new equation. So the first one we want to look at is ax plus b equals c. And we want to solve this for x. So essentially, in solving for x, we're going to treat every other letter in the equation as a number. And so if I were solving for x, I know from experience that my first step would be to subtract this number here, this b, which would leave me with ax equals c minus b. Then, to get rid of the a, since it's being multiplied by x, I would divide both sides by a, and I get x equals c minus b over a. Now I could use that to solve an equation that was written in a similar format, like 2x plus 5 equals 11. All I have to do is track that down here and plug those numbers in where they belong. So c was the one number all by itself on the right hand side, that's our 11. B was the number being added, that's the 5. A was the number being multiplied, that's the 2. So 11 minus 5 divided by 2 is 6 divided by 2, which is 3. So this is the part of the answer that's my rewritten equation. This is the solution to 2x plus 5 equals 11 using my rewritten equation. Now, this is often really handy when I have an equation with more than one variable in it, like 3x plus 2y equals 8. Eventually we're going to want to graph, and one of the most helpful ways to graph is when we have y equals. So we want to rewrite this equation so that y is a function of x. In other words, we want to get this rewritten so that we have y equals some quantity with just x in it, with no y. So again, we're going to treat everything else as if it were a number. So that means this 3x being added needs to be subtracted from both sides. Now, just to get in a good habit that I'm going to need later on, I'm going to write it as negative 3x plus 8 instead of 8 minus 3x. And you'll realize why in a couple of chapters. My next step is to get rid of that 2 that's being multiplied by dividing. Now, when I divide that sum by 2, it's kind of like using the distributive property with 1/2. So I get negative 3 over 2x plus 4. There's my equation for y in terms of x. This is also really helpful for formulas. For instance, a equals 1/2 bh, which you might recognize as the formula for the area of a triangle. Now, suppose instead of knowing b and h, we know a and b. Well, I can rewrite this equation in terms of h, and then I can plug in the a and b that I know to solve for that h. So my first step is to get rid of the 1/2 and the b from the h. Now, I can get rid of the 1/2 by multiplying both sides by 2, which gives me 2a equals bh. Then, since that b is being multiplied, I get rid of it by division, which gives me h equals 2a over b. So if I have a known area like 64.4 square meters and a known base like 14 meters, I can plug those in to find the height of the triangle. So what would the height of my triangle have to be? Right, 9.2. So it's really handy when we know some information in a formula, but not others. Now, imagine you're visiting another country where the temperature is measured differently than it is in America. For instance, Canada measures their temperature in degrees Celsius. And so if we have a temperature amount in Fahrenheit, we might use this formula to convert it to Celsius. But if I know the temperature in Celsius and I want to convert it to Fahrenheit, I'm going to need a different formula. I'm going to need an F equals in terms of C. So I want to solve that equation for f. Now, instead of distributing that 5 9ths, remember that we can multiply both sides by 9 over 5. That will cancel out that fraction. Now I've got 9 over 5c equals f minus 32. And what's my last step to get f equals? Right, we add 32 to both sides. So we get f equals 9/5 c plus 32. So if I know the temperature in Celsius, I can plug it into this equation to find the temperature in Fahrenheit. For instance, if I know that Saturday is going to have a high of 22 degrees Celsius, I can plug that in here and find what my Fahrenheit temperature is going to be. When I do that, I find that my high for Saturday is what? Fahrenheit. Now I'm going to give you one equation to rewrite on your own. So let's try the perimeter formula for a rectangle, which is P equals 2L plus 2W. And I want you to rewrite that as a W equals equation. So pause the video and give it a shot. Okay, so remember, if you're rewriting it for W, you want to treat everything else like it's a number. And if that's the case, then we need to get rid of that 2L first because that's being added to the 2W. That gives us P minus 2L equals 2W. Next step is to get rid of the 2. And since I got two terms over on the left, I'm going to multiply by 1/2 instead of dividing by 2 to make it a little neater. That's going to give me 1/2 P minus 1L, because that 1/2 times -2 is -1. So there's my equation for width in terms of perimeter and length. Alright, if you have any questions, feel free to ask or go back and watch the video again. Otherwise, you can start on your homework.